Hey guys, it's Julian, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make tech house like Chris Lake and Fisher. So, a lot of times when I make Fisher tutorials, people tell me that it's just Chris Lake producing, so I figured I'd make a video kind of breaking down some stuff I've heard in both projects and just kind of show you some new techniques. As usual, you can get the project file and samples and MIDI and presets and everything from this video in the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. And yeah, let's get started. So, this loop you heard in the intro, we're at 124 BPM, pretty standard tech house tempo. The first sound we have here is this lead, which sounds like this. So what's going on here is, you can see it's just made using analog. It's a pretty simple sound. It's just a saw wave and a square wave. I've got the octave down, or the saw wave down an octave. So it just kind of gives it kind of a little bit more space between the oscillators. You can hear a little bit more like clearly where the saw wave is and where the square wave is. This makes a really nice fat sound. And yeah, after that I get the amp envelope set like this, and then we have a little bit of vibrato and a little bit of unison. You don't want to use a whole lot because with this sound, you really want it to just be really like clean. Like you can even go without it. But I did think it adds a little bit of something nice if you just do a little bit of it. After that, I have this reverb. You can see with this, I've got the dry wet just automating up. So this doesn't play during here because I wanted this to be dry, but then when it rings out, or like when the note ends there, I wanted it to kind of ring out. So I just automated the dry wet to go up. It's a nice way to do it because like if you had this at 80% wet while this all was playing, you can hear it gets in the way, but if you just do it this way, it's a lot cleaner and you can get what you want without the stuff that you don't want. After that, I have a bit of drum bus just to fatten the sound up. You can see I have the transients turned up, which may seem a bit odd with a sound like this, but it just kind of compresses it a little bit more and brings out that reverb. Like if I turn this off, you don't hear the reverb as much as that. So yeah, after that, I just have a compressor side chaining this to the kick, and then the last sound that we have here, or the last effect we have on here, it's just an EQ8 cutting out the line, and that is it for the first lead. The next sound we have here is the second lead, which sounds like this. The way this is made is also using analog. You can see we have two saw waves at the same octave this time, going into the amp envelope, which is set like this. Since this is just playing like that long held out note, I wanted it to kind of fade in, so I just gave it a bit of a tack. You can see I have this set to the linear setting, so it's not curved like that. You just get that like that. And then I have a lot of vibrato. So the vibrato is very important for this sound because with this kind of thing, you don't, and you'll see this more with the next sound too. It's like you don't want to just always have just like straightforward melodic leads. You know, you want to kind of mix it up and have some sounds that are leads like the first one I showed you, and then some sounds that maybe a lead like in this case, but it's a little bit more interesting. You know, it's not just something you would just play like a simple melody on. It's kind of, you know, just meant to be that one note. So that's what this vibrato does. It gives it a really cool texture. If I turn this off, it's just a saw wave, but with it, it kind of like builds tension into that next part. After that, I have a bit of chorus just to kind of spread the sound out. Then we have a drum bus, which is fattening it. And then we have a side chain, and then an auto filter cutting out the low end. And that is it for the first lead, or the second lead. The next sound we have here are the zaps, which sound like this. So yeah, you can see this one's just going do-do-do-do-do. This is actually a really simple sound. You can see it's just one oscillator in operator. I've just got a saw wave here, and it's going into a pitch envelope. And so the pitch envelope, as you would probably imagine, is what's causing the zap. If I turn this off, it's just da-da-da-da-da. But when you turn it on, exactly like that. So you can see with this one, I've got it set this way. I've got a bit of attack, not a whole lot. But the attack makes it interesting. If I turn that off, you can hear it sounds like Knife Party or something. But when we do it this way, it gives it like that little melt into the sound. And then I've got this just like going down there. So yeah, pretty simple stuff. But definitely recommend playing around with the pitch envelope. You can get a lot of different sounds out of this. You know, you can do like a lot of stuff. And yeah, after that we got the drum bus here, which is set like this. You can see just kind of fattening everything up. Here's without it. It really helps to make this feel like a little bit more percussive and a little bit more in your face. Then we have a compressor side chaining this to the kick. And the last thing we have on here is an EQ8 cutting out the low end. This is important with this sound because if I turn this off, you can hear. When it goes down, there's like a boom. So you really got to make sure you're cutting that. Because like if I play that with the bass, you hear that clashing, but when I turn on the EQ, they're able to coexist a lot more cleanly. And yeah, that is it for the zaps. The next thing we have here is a kick, which sounds like this. So this one you can see it's just like this punchy kick sample. I brought it in here. You know, this is more the type of kick you want for this style. Just like a very punchy but still warm kick like this. I've got it tuned as well. You can't see it on the tuner now for whatever. Oh, okay, it's sort of coming up. But yeah, it's actually tuned to G. It's not saying it there, but it's tuned to G. You can see I've got the detune on there, and I've also got it the transpose up a little bit. So important to tune your kicks. And yeah, after that, I've got a bit of drum bass. You can see it's just fattening the sound up. And then I've got the transients up to kind of help with the punch. And then the last thing on there is this EQ8, which is cutting at 220 hertz. And then also boosting the mid-range about at like 696 hertz. This just helps with the punch because a lot of the like in the kick that really gives it that punch is happening around that range. So if you boost it a little bit, you know, you never want to go above 6 dB or below minus 6 dB. But if you boost it a little, you can get a little bit more punch out of the kick. And yeah, after that we have this bass, which sounds like this. So here's the bass line. You can see it's not super complicated. I mean, it is a bit complicated. It's like a complicated minimal bass line, if that makes any sense. You can see it's really just sticking around G, F, and then G sharp. And then a few times it's going up to like A sharp and down to C. And yeah, it's a very simple bass line. It's kind of just like playing with the quarter notes and the eighth notes. Like you have some notes where it's like brr, and then you get the dun dun dun. We've also got some glide notes, and then you can see like it's sliding up to that one and sliding up there as well. You know, just kind of simple stuff. It's also sliding down to there. It's more like about the way you think about it. Like when I'm making these kind of bass lines, I like feel like it's kind of like the lead in the track. Like if we listen to this, the leads are really just like extra kind of percussive stuff. But by having this on here with this bass line, this really is more like the melody in the track. So yeah, for the sound on this one, it's made using 2 layers. We have a mid-range bass, and then a sub. So these are both made using operator. For the mid bass, it's just 2 sine waves doing FM. It's a really simple sound. It's just got the second one turned up a bit. And this is how you get that kind of like really warm, fat bass like you hear in these tracks. It's just FM synthesis. If I turn this down, you can hear it's just going back to a sine wave, and then we turn it up. And yeah, so that's how you get that kind of bass tone. I've got a bit of saturation on that just to kind of beef it up, make it a bit stronger, and also bring out some of the mid-range. And then I have an EQ8 cutting out the line because this is the mid-range bass, so you want to just let it, you know, be focused on the mid-range. You don't want to have any low end in there because that's all going to happen with the sub. So the next sound is the sub, which sounds like this. And this is actually made using the same process as the mid-bass, it's just not as much. So if you remember when I turned down the level on the second oscillator on the mid-bass, it kind of started to get like a sine wave again. If I turn this up, you can hear. It's pretty much the same patch, it's just turned down a little bit more. So it's more focused on like the fundamental harmonic and just like the deep subby frequencies. The other thing to talk about with these is I have this on both of them. It's the glide, so it's important to set this. If you have the overlapping notes, it's just going to overlap and your bass is going to be messy. But if you turn on the glide and you make it monophonic, then you'll get these sliding notes. So the way you do this is you go in operator here and switch the voices to 1. You can do this in any synth. It's just making it monophonic. So I've done that, and then I've also got the glide here set. And I've got this at the same time on both of them. You can see it's important to do that because if you have one at a different time, you can hear it'll be a little bit wonky sounding. I feel like that just sounds kind of weird. They're not really at the same pitch, but this way, it's tight and everything is at an equal pitch, and you can hear it sounds a lot cleaner. So then on the overall bass, the combination of both of those, I've got a little bit of drum bass just to glue them together. Here's without it. And it also fattens them up, it gives them that extra little bit of push to really make it be strong in the mix. Then we just have a compressor, side chaining it to the kick, and then the last thing on there is an EQ8, which is cutting at 102 hertz to cut out some room for the kick. That's typically where the punch and the kick is happening, and then, or like the real punchy, like, meat of the kick. Obviously, there's a bit of punch in the mid-range, like I was talking about, but really, like, the body of the kick is happening around 100 hertz. So we cut that to make room for that, and then I boosted the low end to make that come out more. I'll show you here's without this. And then with it. So it's very important. If you don't do this, it's going to sound a little bit muddy. So yeah, then we've got the kick and bass in a group together called the low end bus. This is a technique called bussing, where essentially you take sounds that are similar. You can see I've also done it with the drums down here. And you can even do this with the leads. And you put them in a group, and when you do this and process them together, it makes them all sound a lot more cohesive, and it makes everything really feel stronger and just fatter in the track. Here's with no group processing on here, so you can see what I'm talking about. And then with it. So you can hear how it really takes it and gives it that extra bit of oomph. And a lot of times, like, if you don't really know what to listen for, you can hear it like this without the processing and think, oh, it's fine. It's a fat kick, fat bass, still fatter than all those sample packs on Splice. But if you actually put this stuff on, you'll see how much of a difference it makes in terms of just making everything hit. So we've got 2 EQs here. I've got one before the drum bus, one after. I talk about this a bit, but it's kind of like the way saturation works, which is what this drum bus is doing. It's just saturating the sound. Is however much signal you put into it. So if you boost some things and cut some things going into the drum bus, you can kind of like make it so the low mid-range, for example, here will distort a little bit less and it won't get as muddy, and then the low end will get stronger and tighter and more pushed together. So that's what I've done here. I've got that boosting, and then I'm cutting at the low mid-range, and then afterwards I'm just doing this to kind of refine it after. You can see how important this is. If I turn that off, you can hear we really need that to focus the sound. Like, just coming out of the drum bus, it's going to sound a little bit muddy, so you have to clean it up like this. But yeah, and then for the drum bus, you can see I've got the set like this. Like I said, this is what really glues these two things together and kind of like pushes them together to make one cohesive line. And then I've also got the transient stuff. So that compresses it a little bit, glues them together a little bit more, and it also makes that kick really have the punch to it. And yeah, that is it for the low end bus. The next sound we have here is a snare, which sounds like this. So something I've noticed with these tracks, both Chris Lake's original tracks and the Fisher tracks, is that they have these very fat and powerful kind of snares, which is not what you would usually use in tech house. Like, a lot of times when you hear tech house tracks, you hear just like a simple clap or something like that, but there's this very strong snare, and I just feel like it has a lot of body and really fills the track out. So the way I've done this here is I've got 2 layers. I've got a snare, which you can hear is like really got that punch to it, and then I've got a clap, which gives it like that over top. You need both. Like, you don't want just the or the you need both of them together to really get that fullness. And it's about like sample selection too. Obviously you don't want to just go and get like a dubstep snare or even like a very like kind of like punchy snare. You want something like this that's more in the mid-range. It just needs to have that like proper body to it. After that, we have this hi-hat, which sounds like this. This is 2 layers. We have a high-end layer, and then sort of like a body layer. So with the high-end layer, it's just kind of adding that like on top in the overall mix. If I turn that off, you can hear the hi-hat doesn't stand out nearly as much as when you have this on here. And then this one is giving it the body, because if you just have the it's not really going to sound that full. It feels a little weak. But then you add in that and it really fills it out. So with this one, I've just got sample in here. I've got a high pass a little, and then I also have a little bit of this fade in to make it a little bit more like as opposed to like really having the attack. And yeah, so definitely layering, very important with this style. Like with these hi-hats, it's important to do this because you just really can't get this fullness without doing this. Like you need to find one sample that's in the high end and one sample that's in the mid-range. And if you want to use these two, link is in the description. After that, I have some extra sort of percussion. So first we have this tambourine and shaker, which are playing off of each other. Sound like this. I'll play this with that hi-hat. they're just kind of adding some extra little kind of stuff in there. Yeah, like I said, we just have a tambourine and a little shaker. Pretty simple stuff. It's important to not do too much with these, though. Like, a lot of times, it can be easy to get the tambourine going throughout the track and have the shaker doing a bunch of stuff. But it's important to have these two things be kind of simple, or else it's going to be too busy. Like, this style is, I'll say, like, it's pretty minimal, It's about having just, like, a strong groove and doing everything you can to make that as strong as possible and not having too much stuff happening around it. So, if you do too much with the tambourine and shaker, it's going to get kind of messy. After that, we got this hi-hat percussion thing, which sounds like this. This is just going... And yeah, just kind of like giving you something that's doing that. You still want something like that to give it some energy, because if I turn this off, you can hear. Doesn't have as much energy as when we have that in there. It's just about finding like a smaller sample like this that's just going to fit in, as opposed to using like a or like a big tambourine or something like that. Then the last layer we've got here in the percussion is this last little percussion, as it's called, which sounds like this. So this is just playing in the background. You probably may not have noticed it, but it does add a lot to the groove. You can hear it now, like, when I'm pointing it out. It's just this little percussion sound. Just adds that little in between some of the upbeats there. Or on some of the upbeats there, Just kind of gives it a little bit more groove, because when you hear that, your head kind of bobs up a little more. Like that. So, definitely an important thing. With this one, I've just got it in here. I've got it pitched down an octave, because you can see it's at C2. And then I've got it high-passed a little. And yeah, and then I have all that percussion in a group. Just like I said with the low-end bus, when you bus all your sounds together like this, you can really make them a lot more cohesive and a lot more full-sounding. Here's with no group processing. And then with all of it. So you can hear it really makes a big difference. First thing we got here is a bit of drum bus. You can see, got the drive up a bit, got the crunch up a little bit, and then I've got the transients up a little as well. Just making everything a hit harder, kind of making it a little bit more cohesive. Then we have this compressor. So you can see this is not doing a whole lot. It's very light. But this is just adding kind of a little bit more balance to the mix. Like, compression, if you do too much, will flatten out your mix. But if you do it enough, it will balance it. It's like the same effect that you're getting when you just flatten a mix way out with compression. It's just you're only doing it a little bit like this. So it kind of like just balances everything and makes it feel kind of cleaner. If I turn this off, you can hear. The hi-hats aren't really as present. And you can't really hear everything as well. But when we add it, it really, like I said, makes it feel more balanced. And the key with this is the attack. We're also just not doing too much with the threshold. But with the attack is essentially how long it takes for the compression to kick in. So you can turn this up, and then it won't mess up your transients, and you can have a lot cleaner compression on your drums. And then the last thing on there is just an EQ8, cutting out the low end and boosting the high end a little bit, just kind of cleaning things up, making sure there's no nasty low end happening, and then kind of making the high end stand out a little bit more. And yeah, so that is it for the drum bus, and also for this video, guys. So I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video, as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the project file and samples and MIDI and presets, all of that stuff from this video in the description. So if you just want to play with this bass line, maybe you just want to play with this kick, maybe you want to turn this into your own track and release it, whatever it is that you want to do, you can get the project file in the description for just $5. So definitely check that out. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.